Welcome, everybody, to The Adult Chair. I'm Pete Wright, and I'm here once again with Michelle Chalfant. Hello, Michelle.
Hello, Pete.
Have you thawed out?
Have I thawed out? Oh, my God. We're getting another ice and snowstorm on Wednesday.
You are not.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's kind of crazy.
It is really chilly here today. I had my window open, but I was just forced to close it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Because I caught a bit of a chill.
I'm sorry.
Oh, my goodness me. I caught a chill.
We still have ice and snow on the ground. Not all over, but we do have it still, like in the flower beds and on the decks and everything. And it's maybe 40 today, but tomorrow it's going to be 65. And then on Wednesday, boom,
10.
All hell breaks loose. Yeah, and it goes down to like 19 and raining that turns to ice that turns to snow. So.
Oh, that's so horrible.
I know, but I'm not complaining. I saw Boston on the news, and it's not pretty up there.
It's really not good.
Yeah, no.
Not good.
So I really can't complain.
No. Well, we are talking about codependency today, which is, I'm very much looking forward to. It sets up this conversation as this continuing conversation. We took a bit of a hiatus on our conversation about addiction with our show last week because you were ill, which now you sound much, much better.
Finally.
So we're gonna start talking about this codependency and then continuing our journey on addiction. But before we do that, if you are just tuning into the show or listening on the website, go learn a little bit more about us and the show. You can subscribe for free in iTunes. But even better than that, just when you're on the website, there's a little box that says, hey, subscribe right on the front page. Subscribe to the Adult Chair and more. You'll join our mailing list, and each Monday, right as soon as or each Tuesday, I should say, as soon as the show goes live, we'll send out an email just to let you know it's up. You can play it and keep up with us that way. I know sometimes the iTunes thing gets a little bit crazy. How do you do that? We have instructions on the site, but if you don't even want to deal with that, don't even think about it. Just go to the website and hit play. That's easy. So the easiest way to do that is sign up for the mailing list. Thought that would make it easier for people. Don't you agree?
I think so. Much easier.
So you can find us and follow us on twitter.com at Michelle Chalfant or at Pete Wright. Would love to hear from you. And best of all, you can call us 931-463-3813. Leave us a voicemail and we'll put your voice on the show. Okay, so I have a passage to read.
Ooh, I love it.
Can I read? Do you mind if I
please.
do a little bit of reading?
Please.
All right.
Yeah.
It's a couple paragraphs, so bear with me. I find this fascinating. The experiment is simple. I should credit. This is from a piece by Johann Hari, who just wrote a book. His book is called, what is it called? The Search for Scream, or Chasing the Scream. Chasing the Scream. Have you heard of this book?
I think I have, actually.
New book. Fantastic.
It sounds like something I've heard.
The experiment is simple. Put a rat in a cage alone with 2 water bottles. One is just water. The other is water laced with heroin or cocaine. Almost every time you run this experiment, the rat will become obsessed with the drugged water and keep coming back for more and more until it kills itself. The advert explains, only one drug is so addictive, 9 out of 10 laboratory rats will use it and use it and use it until dead. It's called cocaine, and it can do the same thing to you. But in the 1970s, a professor of psychology in Vancouver called Bruce Alexander noticed something odd about this experiment. The rat is put in the cage all alone. It has nothing to do but take the drugs. What would happen, he wondered, if we tried this differently? So Professor Alexander built Rat Park. It's a lush cage where the rats would have colored balls and the best rat food and tunnels to scamper down and plenty of friends, everything a rat about town could want. What Alexander wanted to know will happen then. In Rat Park, all of the rats obviously tried both water bottles because they didn't know what was in them. But what happened next was startling. The rats with good lives did not take the drugged water. They mostly shunned it, consuming less than a quarter of the drugs the isolated rats used. None of them died. While all the rats who were alone and unhappy became heavy users, none of the rats who had a happy environment did. So the opposite of addiction, then, is not sobriety. It is human connection.
I saw that on Facebook. That's how I'd heard of it. I'm like, I love that.
Right?
Totally amazing.
I think that gets to everything that we've been talking about, right? That particularly from our conversation about addiction and leading to this conversation about, other components of addictive behavior, that the critical impact of of connection, interpersonal connection on broader physical and physiological health is stunning to me.
I became friends here with a woman that's very, very, very involved with the homeless population here in Nashville. And did you know we have one of the largest homeless populations in the country?
Yeah, I think it's right up there with Portland, too. It's like in the top 5.
And we have a wonderful rehab program, and they sell newspapers, and they make money from the newspapers to get them off the street. It's wonderful. Anyway, I had lunch with her one day, and I asked her this question. I said, why do you think most people become homeless? And I understand that there are people that are mentally not right, and I get that. There are those people, but there are other people that had normal lives. Like she was telling me about doctors and lawyers and people that had normal lives, CEOs that now were homeless. I'm like, well, what happens? And she said exactly that they lost human connection. They didn't feel loved. They lost that. And from these very successful jobs with families, she told me about a doctor, I think, that had come home one day, is very, very successful, and his wife said, I'm leaving you, and taking the kids. And he was so depressed, he couldn't go to work. His whole life just crumbled, and he became homeless. She says, this happens. But it's human connection. It's feeling loved. It's feeling, I love that. Thank you for reading that.
It is beautiful. It's a beautiful passage, and I think it's just important to think about when you start finding that, for me, I remember that when I start finding, hey, my behavior is changing. I'm maybe playing this game a little bit too often, or, I realize that I'm seeing some of those otherwise addictive kind of traits creep up. Yeah. And I realize I haven't talked to anybody in a while. That is certainly the challenge I run into working out of my home office, and I do a lot of Skype. So sometimes I need to actively seek people out to remind myself. Me too. I like my cave, when I'm not seeing clients. Yeah. I come home and I'm in my cave and I'm doing my writing and doing podcasts with you and things like this. And I realize I'm like, hold on. Yes. Get out and start interacting, connecting. Yeah, that's right. So how do you want to connect that to what we're talking about today? To codependency. Codependency is a topic we could talk about for a year, by the way, but we'll try and do it in 15 minutes. Now announcing a spin-off podcast. Yeah, exactly. It can go on and on and on. And, I realize with so many of these topics that we talk about, the experience is mine. I can talk about it because I've had all of these things. So been there, done that, and also done a lot of work with this. So codependency is one that I know very, very well. It's near and dear to my heart. That's a really weird thing to say, just so you know. Yeah, I know. Well, codependency, I think a lot of people probably know that term from, what's her name? Melanie Beattie I remember 20 some years ago buying one of her books, and she talked a lot about these people that were codependent due to their spouses or partners being alcoholics or drug addicts. So I think now codependency, we realize you can be a codependent person and not be married or be partnered up with someone that has an addiction. But we become codependent because of our dysfunctional upbringings. Right. But codependent, Pia Melody is another big name. I actually took a training from her a few years ago and really loved her. She says that it's a disease of immaturity caused by childhood trauma. But some of the characteristics of codependency would be someone that has self-esteem issues or boundary issues. They don't know what's real in the world. They have a lot of stories or assumptions. They don't know what their needs are. And they have difficulty with moderation. So this comes from Pia Melody, and I love all of it. I think that's all true. But what I really know that's true is this comes from dysfunctional parenting. So I believe it comes from enmeshment or even abandonment when we're growing up. So
what I mean by that is when our parents don't know how to parent us in a healthy way, or if they're dealing with their own struggles or traumas in their own life, they sometimes lean on the children. And the children feel very responsible for the parents being functioning adults and needing love from them, et cetera, et cetera. So we try and then take care of our parents. So there's the trauma. Children are not here to take care of their parents. And that's called enmeshment, when we really merge in with our parents and try and take care of their needs and their emotions and try and basically fix them. Does that all make sense?
Well, it does, and I'm sort of stewing on a question that's making me a little bit crazy. I don't know if I'm going to frame it right, but there is this, how do you, maybe we can table it, I'll kind of hold on to it for later, but how do you figure out what that boundary is, particularly with your parents, because of that need? There is, I think, maybe it's broader than just me, but there is this need when you see your parents suffering in some way, shape, or form, that there is a need to kind of step in and help if you can, right? What is that resource? How do you help and take care without then becoming, as enmeshed to the point where it's not healthy anymore? What is a healthy boundary, for parental activity? And that may be beyond the scope of what we want to talk about today.
Are you talking from a child perspective or from a parent perspective?
Well, I think it goes from a child perspective, right? Because your parents, and I guess I'm talking as an adult child, but there is a sense when you're talking about your parents, and I talk about my parents, like when they struggle, the connection that hits from me is not an adult chair perspective, right? It's not a rational and reasoned approach. It's my parents are suffering for some reason, and I want to respond. Usually it's this sort of unbridled kind of emotional, response of the child. Look how much they did for me. How can I help? Right? It's sort of like an opportunity to pay them back. Mm-hmm. That may be a not the right way to say it, but that is the what I think about. Like, oh my gosh, they're suffering. It is my duty to fix this because it was their duty to help me for so long.
Unless they ask for your help, then we don't fix our parents.
Well, see, now when you say that, it makes it sound so easy.
I know, but this is where we have to get really good. And by the way, you're obviously being triggered when you...
Do you know what I am? And I want to say it very clearly.
I mean, not by me, but by parents.
No, and I want to tell you a story because I think you're exactly right. And what's funny is I'm being triggered because of a not too recent experience with my parent who was struggling with some issues and they live in another state. And it wasn't that I did feel that, oh my goodness, I need to step in and help somehow. I'm an adult. There's got to be a way to do it. And for one reason or another, I think probably for their better sense of boundaries than my own, I never really did. Like, they got through it and they're fine. Like, They're fine. They got through it. It took some years, but they got to the other end of what they were dealing with and they're fine. And the whole time I felt horrible about it. Horrible. It was this iceberg to the Titanic sense of shame that I couldn't do more, wasn't there, or I should have moved there. I should have, what could I have done more? It was terrible. And I feel like I've largely moved past it. But if you're talking about, it's still very sensitive. When you say I'm triggered, yeah, I mean, it's still definitely a sensitive thing. What would I do differently this time? Well, I don't know.
Did you ask them how you could help?
No. No.
Of course not.
No.
That would be your adult.
No. Right. I wasn't living there.
What I hear you saying is, so your parents had some sort of crisis, right?
Yeah.
And then your story was, and which brought up, by the way, here's the missing part that most people miss. Your parents were in crisis. It brought up an emotion within you. I did not hear you say that you sat in that emotion or felt that emotion. That's the part that most people miss.
Yes.
So I'm glad that you're saying this.
Yes.
What you did was there was a pretty intense emotion that came up. You did label it shame, I think.
Oh, yes.
Okay. But I wonder what else was around that. Instead of feeling the shame, You jumped right over to the story, which is, but they were really good to me. I should be there for them. They're my parents. They're out of, blah, 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 blah. That's all a story. That's all just a made up story.
Right.
So instead, an adult, your adult part of you, your healthy adult would say, wow, I'm really feeling some emotion on this. Let me sit and feel what these emotions are. And then when you are done with that, you then go to your parents, again, from the adult, and without the intention of fixing them. Perhaps they don't want to be fixed. Mm-hmm. And remember, this is also an opportunity for them to grow. We're all here to grow, let's face it. We're all here to have these experiences to grow. So when we rush in and save someone, or so we think we're saving them, it doesn't help them. So the adult thing would have been to feel your emotions and then ask them, hey, is there anything I can do?
Right.
Period.
Yeah.
And if they say no, we have to learn to be comfortable with that no, even if we interpret that they are suffering.
Okay.
Notice the word interpret. Interpret. If we are building a story around the fact that, but they're suffering and they really need me and maybe I should move there. Nope. How do we know? Because what we do is we place our values and how we're feeling on them. We project it out on them and assume this must be how they're feeling. This must be what's going on. And maybe they are in turmoil, and maybe they're having, I don't know what the crisis was, but, a bad time. Unless they say to you, hey, you know what, Pete, I really need you to move here. I need you to come help me, or I need you to move in for a month. Then we have to learn how to detach from that story and stay out of the story, because our mind is really good at making up stories.
I think that's what I'm feeling. And I think, the last time we specifically put Pete through a bit of therapy on this issue was episode 7, Fighting Fables. Go back and listen to that. It's really entertaining. But this is the same thing. And I think you just connected that for me in a new way. I think knowing what I know now, I probably would behave differently. But this was some years ago. I don't think I've really processed it, even though everything's fine. When I say I don't know what I would do differently cognitively, my adult says, I know what I would do differently, but they're my parents. Yeah. That's a very powerful kind of a statement, and staying out of the way unless explicitly asked that's kind of a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah. And it's not to say you can't ask them, hey, do you need help?
Yeah.
How may I help you? We don't assume that we know the best way to help them, anybody. We ask, and if they say, you know what, thank you so much for the offer, but we're okay, then we have to learn how to get okay with what we're feeling. It's not a rejection. It's just I have to learn how to get comfortable with what's coming up for me. This is a good example. A really good friend of our family's was going through cancer. She had breast cancer, and my aunt is a big caretaker, and my aunt assumed that our good friend of the family would need her to come up and take care of everything. So she kept trying to do that. Well, our friend kept saying, nope, I don't need you. I'm going to go through this on my own. Well, it completely offended my aunt.
Oh, yeah.
She was ticked and got angry.
Well, doesn't that define codependency?
Yes. Because I'm not needed.
Yeah.
So if we go way back in time to our childhood again, we're either enmeshed where we're taking care of our parents, which is abusive. By the way, it's abusive.
Well, talk more about that.
Parents need to have boundaries, healthy boundaries with us. But again, it goes back to the typical story. So many of our parents didn't learn how to do that. So we all do the best that we can. There's no blame here. It's just sort of facts. So how were you raised? So were you raised with enmeshment, or were you raised with abandonment or neglect, emotionally or physically? So it's either you're taking care of your parent or parents emotionally, or when you have needs or wants, when you're a child, the parent just really isn't there. They're just not available because of their own stuff. Maybe they're alcoholics. Maybe they don't know how to touch their own emotions. Maybe you're, as a child, are triggering them, so they just build a wall and shut down. So then we take that as shame, oh my God, I'm not, so then we try harder as children. So that's what I mean by abuse. It's abusive. And meshing with your kid is abusive.
Okay.
It just is. And abandoning your child is abusive. So I know, like here's my story with my own mom. She married into this, upstate New York Italian family, and they were very enmeshed. My father was 14 years older than my mom, and there was a lot of verbal and emotional abuse going on between, my uncle and my grandmother to my mom. My mom had nobody. And I remember being 6 years old, and she would be crying in the back. Oh, and by the way, we'd all live together because we're Italian. We all live together every summer. That's what we do as Italians. We're all big, one gigantic happy family, and sweep all the dysfunction under the carpet. So there was a lot of drinking going on, and my mom had no family whatsoever. Her sister lived 10 hours away in a studio apartment in the middle of New York. So my mom didn't want to go and live with her, so she lived where we grew up. So anyway, here I am, 6 years old, watching my mom crying in the back room all by herself. So wow. Guess who would go and try and take care of her and ask her what was wrong? Because no one else was.
Right.
Me. So and by the way, when I say this, I don't blame my mom at all. I mean, good God, she did the best that she could. I get that. And I know people say that, well, they did the best they could. I have done a ton of work on this. And when I say that, I really get it in my heart, and I mean it. She really did the best that she could do at the time. She was like 22 with me. My dad's in his early 30s and meshed with his twin brother and could not stand up to his twin brother that was abusing my mom. So he just was paralyzed in fear. He couldn't say anything. He didn't stop it. So guess who rose up to stop it? Me. So I started becoming very like a caretaker of my mom. And then by the time I was 12, she started then leaning on me a little bit more and saying, yeah, your uncle is mean to me. Yeah, this. Yeah. Because I kept seeing it. I'm like, why is, Uncle so-and-so being so mean to you? And she would just kind of cry about it as I rubbed her back. And I did to her what a parent should be doing to the child.
Exactly.
So that's enmeshment.
That's such an interesting thing. Is there a connection between sort of enmeshment of this sort of codependent behaviors that is connected somehow to emotional development, like chronological emotional development? As you get older, yes. Are you naturally better at seeing these things? Because when I think about my experience, it's so much easier for me to imagine doing things different now. I was an idiot in my early 30s. I was an idiot. Right. I was an idiot to the 10th in my early 20s. Like I right. Of course, it would have been a natural thing for me to feel this way. But now I feel like these are the years of ascension. I'm in my mid 40s, and this is something that I would make different decisions now.
Part of the reason why I love doing these podcasts is just to educate people, because we don't know what we're doing until we learn and hear about things like this. I didn't even know. I remember reading about codependency in my early 20s, and I'm like, oh, I think that's me. And I went to like a codependency group, and it was a bunch of women that were overeating, and that was and I thought, this isn't me. So I kind of said no to that, but came back to it a few years later and realized this really is me, and what am I going to do about it? So having information for me is powerful. Because if I know that this is something that I'm dealing with, then I can start paying attention to it. And that's where I began to change. I started seeing, and the other thing is, when we're so enmeshed with a caregiver, we don't know what boundaries are. Like, we don't know where we stop and start. I don't want to get on a whole energy talk, but it's like we kind of become one with the other person. I couldn't do anything without my mom. As I got older, I couldn't make decisions without her. We became like everyone, like a best friend, which is not a good thing if it's your mom, by the way. And I know a lot of people say, oh, my mom's my best friend. Not a good idea. I still say, it's your mom.
Yeah.
Mom shouldn't tell you about, I'm not saying that my mom has done this, but I've had clients where, oh, my mom was telling me about her sex life and da da da. I'm like, no. There are some things where a mom's got to stay a mom and a kid stays a kid. I don't care if you're 50, your mom's 70. It's like, no, there has to be a line. It's called emotional incest when your parents dump too much on you as a child. So anyway, what do we do with this if we realize, oh my God, I think I am codependent. I think that it becomes our identity. It's like, this is the statement, I'm okay only if you're okay. That's codependent.
Right.
I'm okay only if you're okay. If you're not okay, then I'm thrown, then I've got knots in my stomach. So we spend our lives making sure that people in our circle are okay. And so my own needs, I didn't even know what they were. They were gone. My boundaries, I didn't have any. I was kind of a blending in with all of my friends and my boyfriends. And then I tried to do that with my husband. It's like, if we don't feel needed, then we don't know who we are. In fact, I remember when my husband and I first met, and we were engaged, he'd say, oh, I really love you. And I'd say to him, but you don't need me. Why do you love me? I specifically would use that statement with him. And he's like, what the hell are you talking about? And I said, you don't, because he was very independent, he didn't need me. And I said, how can you love me if you don't need me? I asked him that for months. And then I realized, I'm like, holy crap, that's so codependent.
Wow.
Oh my God. So the more I learned about it, the more I could recognize it. And it's so subtle because we are helpers. How perfect. I'm a therapist. Of course, right? I went into therapy so I could help everybody. But I've had to learn about boundaries, and I've had to learn how to say no. When people call me, and my family even, let's say, and my mom, I remember a few years ago, said, hey, I need you to help me. I have blah, 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 blah going on. I don't know what to do. What do you think? And I said, I think you need a therapist. I remember the day I said this to her, and she was like, what? You're my therapist. I said, that's not healthy anymore. We ain't doing that. Yeah. And I was like, no, that's not good. I'm not doing that. You need a therapist. And the more I pulled away from people in a healthy way, not that I was abandoning anybody, but really setting boundaries for what's okay and what's not. And by the way, I was exhausted my whole life. It's exhausting to take care of so many people.
Well, and we've talked about this before, right? This is my quest for 2015 is not to let others' stress become my own stress. That's a codependent behavior that I'm still trying to break. And they're just because they're stressed, I'm taking that on. It's the same. It's like the inverse of the same logic, right? I'm okay if they're okay.
Exactly.
And I can't control their level of okayness.
So what do we do about it? That's the big question. Right. So now I realize, oh my God, and again, everything it's on a spectrum, let's face it. Some people are extremely codependent and some are slightly. So what do? We have to learn how to get okay with what we're feeling. So in your case with your parents, it's like, hey, my parents are going through this crisis. And I'm feeling like I need to reach out and save them. That's all that codependency kind of thing. We have to get in touch with, well, how does it make me feel that I can't save them? How does it make me feel? How does it make me feel if someone's upset with me? What comes up for me? I'm going to guess it's abandonment issues, it's rejection. That's where we sit in it. We're not good at sitting in our negative emotions.
And then instead it turns into like reciprocal rage. Like they must be mad at me, and so I'm going to go ahead and be mad back.
Exactly. We make up a story and say, well, I have done that for years, and I still struggle with this. When I call somebody or email somebody and ask them questions and they don't get right back to me, like within a few days, the story starts going on and on. In my mind, that adolescent part of me, that ego says, well, oh my God, I just realized they haven't called me back. Are they mad at me? No. And then I list an inventory in my mind. Well, what have I done wrong? Have I done something wrong? And it's this unconscious cycle of, I think I've done something wrong. I need to fix it. So then I call them again and then they don't call me back. And then it's like, I realize I go into this panic. I'm learning how to sit in that panic and get underneath the panic and realize what the hell, what is the feeling? What am I so afraid of?
Right.
Because it's the little child part of us that is having the feeling. So I connect into her and I'm learning to sit in those feelings. And then I bring my adult on in and I go, okay, well, what do I know that's true? And that saves me. Because what do we know that's true? Let's say if someone doesn't call us back, it's like, well, gosh, I'm feeling so rejected. So sit in that rejection. We have to learn to sit in our emotions. Once we sit in them, we can let them pass through us and out. Once we do that, then we go, well, what's true? Well, I know that I haven't done anything wrong to piss them off, so-and-so. So maybe they didn't get the phone call. Maybe they didn't get the email. I think I'll reach out again. That's all very adult. I think I'll reach out again. But I'm doing it from a place of very factual information versus being triggered and calling them a million times because I'm scared that they're going to reject me. I've already sat in that.
Right.
I get it. That's mine. So we have to really detach from the story that is going on and find out what's true after we have felt our feelings around it. My life was all about, and that's the thing, this codependency can be so unconscious. I remember very vividly, I was with a bunch of my friends in the mountains, and we were at a restaurant, and I turned to my friend, and she'd gotten French fries, and I turned to her and I said, I thought that you liked ketchup. And she said, well, I do. And they said, and I said, oh, well, do you want some? And she says, yeah. Now, hello.
Yeah.
She can order ketchup, right?
Yeah.
I can, this was years ago, but it's like it happened a day ago. And I turned to her and I go, okay. And I turned and I felt panic because she didn't have ketchup. So I'm raising my hand, trying to get that waitress over here. And the waitress comes over and I go, she needs ketchup. You didn't give her ketchup. She goes, okay, thanks. All my friends started to laugh because they knew I was working on all this. And they said, hello, codependent. And I said, oh my God, I didn't even realize that I did that. I didn't realize it's just like, it was such an automatic, let me take care of you. So I'm learning to sit in the uncomfortableness when I feel like and think, by the way, it's a thought, that someone else needs to be taken care of. I'm learning how to sit in the uncomfortableness if I don't take care of them. And that, to me, is just raising the awareness around the codependency and starting to heal that inner child part that feels like she has an identity only when people need her.
Wow.
It's really healing to sit in it.
It is. It's amazing. And I think you're demonstrating that connection I had to that sort of chronological development, right? Because all of these behaviors, they just reek to me of my literal adolescent, right? This is the way it was those little behaviors like, gosh, I think she must be frustrated with me. I'll bet she's going to break up with me. I better break up with her first.
Exactly.
That sort of reactionary, those stories, right? They just come out. But I was not even capable at that point. My brain had not even developed enough to be able to rationalize what a non-codependent behavior would have looked like,
right,
at the time. So this is fascinating, and I'm glad we talked about this. I'm glad my life once again may serve as a warning to others,
and mine,
and yours. Right. Shine a giant light on it. Anything else we need to tell people before we wrap up?
No, just remember it's a process and we all have this. I think not all of us, but a lot of people out there are. I see it time and time again, and it's so tricky and sneaky. We don't know that we have this, how do I say this? This relationship with others in this way. So it's just be aware of it. That's part of the reason why I wanted to do this today, is just to become aware, just to raise the awareness around it. If you feel like your identity is based around other people needing you, just be aware. It's not healthy, and you've got to learn to sit in your adult and find out what's true, and then after you connect into your feelings around it.
I've got some work to do.
I know, me too. It's ongoing. I've looked for that magic pill to heal everything, and I just can't seem to find it. I want to keep looking.
But you can bet when we find it, we'll have a way to sell it.
Yeah.
I'm sure there'll be some sort of affiliate.
Yes, definitely.
Thanks, everybody, for downloading, for listening, for subscribing, either via email or in iTunes. We sure appreciate your time and attention and all the really, really kind words that you have shared with us so far. We appreciate it. But you should know, we're okay even if you don't share those kind words. Did you get it? That was a codependency joke.
I don't like it.
No, there's no
okay.
laugh track. I'm going to have to insert a laugh track.
We're okay either way. If nobody listens to this, maybe it was just a session for you and me to talk about it.
Exactly. And so I say, with no intention to be codependent at all, on behalf of Michelle Chalfant, I'm Pete Wright, and we'll catch you later on The Adult Chair.